Okay, hi all. So we are going to be going over vector images today. And so there's kind of two ways to do vector images. As we talked about in the lecture, I'm going to be showing you like the hand tracing using the curvature tool in Adobe Illustrator. Um, to kind of do this, you also can use like trace functions, but I like this way better. Although I will say I am not an artist, so please don't make fun of this item that is coming out of this. Um, as I do not grade you on your art, so please don't grade me on mine. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm taking the curvature tool and I am creating some anchor points. So I've already used a guide to drag it to the center of the model's face, and I've locked that image layer. And then I'm using the curvature tool and clicking to create anchor points to draw an outline around one side of the model's face. So what the curvature tool does is it creates geometric curves automatically. So I don't need like a ton of anchor points. To create the corner points and the straight lines, I held Option on a Mac and then or Alt on a PC key as I clicked. And then to finish the shape, I clicked on the original anchor point while holding Alt or Option. Um, so yeah, this is just kind of a slower process of me going through and creating the curvature tool. So after I've got one side, I want to recolor it just so I can kind of see what I'm doing. And then what I did was I simply copied this first half of the face and then I used the reflect tool I used transform to reflect this, but you also can use the reflect tool, which would be clicking on the center guide to set a reflection point, and then clicking the shape, holding Shift, Alt, or Option, and then dragging a reflected copy of the shape. So there's kind of two ways to do this. But at the end of the day, I've created a face and it's going to be down in the left hand corner. And so then I'm basically just doing the same thing again with the curvature tool to create her glasses. I'm again copying and pasting to create her eyebrows. Um, Using the curvature tool again to create her lips, which are terribly drawn. I'm so sorry. You have to watch this. And then I created some nostrils and I wanted to give her a septum piercing. So I went ahead and just enlarged the two shapes that I'd used for the nostrils and flipped it upside down to create her little septum piercing. I also just had used some curvature tools for earrings. And so, yeah. So after that, what I wanted to do was I wanted to create her hair. So here I'm using the ellipsis tool to kind of drag around what I think her like afro hair should look like. And then I've recolored it and I'm going to um, effect, distort and transform, and then zigzag. And here I'm kind of like experimenting with the different settings. I didn't really like love how this first one looked because I thought it was like too jaggedy. And so I'm again just playing with this effect, the zigzag effect. That's like really punk rocky, and I wasn't really going for that. So I'm trying to create more of like a 70s like glamour kind of vibe. So I played around with these settings until I kind of got something that I was interested in, which is this last little option that's about to pop up on your screen. So from there, I did a lot of recoloring, and the video is gonna jump. So I did a lot of recoloring, and kind of changed around some like colors of her face and her lips and her glasses. And then I started working on her hair. So I kind of wanted to give her more of like like a dimensional effect to her hair. So what I did was I went to the hair, the first object, and I chose expand experience appearance, and converted the zigzag path into a shape. And then to create this kind of like layered look, I held Alt or Option and dragged to create overlapping copies of the hair, and then used the selection tool to select all copies of the hair. From there, I used the shape builder tool and held Alt as I removed the like sections of hair outside of like that original shape. And then I went in and I started doing some recoloring. I kind of like the idea of having like this tritone in there, and kind of played around with some like a little bit of movement. But ultimately, I had decided like that this was like pretty good for a non-artiste. So I went through and I made sure to hide my hair layers, because the last thing I wanted to kind of do was create a little bit of a shadow on the face just to make it look pretty realistic. And so I used this curvature tool to like shadow half of her face, and then colored it black, and then turned the opacity down to about 50%. And then I decided, like, when I had first looked at it, I was like, yeah, the left side of the face would be good. But then I was like, I really don't love the left side of the face. So using my selection tool, I went and I selected everything on the face. But I had first decided, before I did that, I decided that I wanted the shadow to be on the opposite side of the face. So I went through, used my selection tool, selected everything on the face, and then again used the shape builder to trim the shadow that like extended off of her face. So it only, as you can see here, it's only covering like one half of her face. But then I was like, wait, I don't really like how that looks. It was like, it's like too much. And then I moved in and I was like, oh no, this is terrible. So you get to see my mistakes in real time. So I kind of went back and redid some of these steps. And I made the shape a little bit smaller, and I like changed it a little bit. Like I like skewed it just so it was like kind of off of her face. And then again did the same thing where I took the selection tool and I removed the part of the shadow that wasn't on the face so it wouldn't like show up on her hair. So yeah, I then went ahead and brought her hair back and decided that I liked what I saw. And then what you're going to want to do for your project, especially if you build it on Illustrator, but also as a point in your project, is that there's this panel on your side that shows kind of all of the little images that you've created, which are the vector images. And so you're going to want to take a screenshot of these, sides, just to show that you like actually created a vector image. That's like a required part of the project. So after this point, I went ahead and I copied these over into a new Illustrator document, just so I would have a clean one. And I wanted to like keep it with the sizing, so I chose the poster size for a document in Illustrator, just because I know that I wanted it to be a poster in Photoshop. So I wanted to keep the size pretty similar across the board. So after that, what I went and did was I went and saved this document, and then I created a background for my New Yorker cover because this was just like one part of it that I wanted to do. And I then went and opened everything in Photoshop So this is the background that I created, which was just using a trace option. So it's also a vector image background. Then I'm using the lasso tool to go ahead and lasso this little image off of here and move it over to my cover. I had to do a little bit of resizing here. I kind of played around with these options. It's not in this video, but I did make the image a little bit bigger because I wanted her face to take up like most of the magazine cover. And then I really like the idea of like having her face down at the bottom and then having some like blank space before the cover at the top. So almost like she was like peeking out at the viewer. So that's why I moved it down to the bottom and kind of played around with some placement there. And then I went and copied the New Yorker title. Now you can either copy the New Yorker title or get the Irvin fonts and put it into your Photoshop if you wanted to do something else. But I, again, lassoed this, pulled it up, and there it is, centered on the document. You don't have to put like the issue number or the date or any of that at the top, but that title is required. So yeah, that's how I made my quick little New Yorker image. This is like bare minimum vector imaging. I know that it's a little bit difficult to do, which is why we're taking a little bit more time on it. But I really encourage you to, like really explore Illustrator and Photoshop and kind of how they interact with one another, and really get into like some cool vector imaging. I mean, there's a lot you can do with this tool. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me and we can talk about where you're maybe stuck or ideas you might have or anything along those lines. So that's all I've got for you. As always, feel free to email me or come to office hours if you have any questions, and I will see you all later. Have a good day.